Attorney who graduated from Suffolk Law School in Boston. Mr. Franco is currently serving as the chair of the Massachusetts Bar Association Immigration Service Council. She also has the distinction of having gone to law school, and so she must be a very patient and strong woman, with a colleague of ours, Mike Costello.
And he was in my class.
Yes, he was.
That's right.
And you are a special person for getting out of it alive with him. Mr. Franco.
Thank you. I am Marisa Defranco, and I am a Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate. And what's my track record? I am an immigration attorney, and what I got into this race to do what I've been doing for my entire 15-year career, and that is to fight for people's rights, their civil rights, and small businesses' rights, and jobs for everybody. And to stand up for the tenet that we are supposed to believe in this country, which is equal opportunity for everybody and a fair pay for a hard day's work. What's my track record? I fight the federal government for a living, and I win. I make mincemeat out of Immigration and Customs Enforcement Council on gender asylum cases that are long shots, and I win them. So give me a debate against Scott Brown, and I'll make him into whatever is smaller than mincemeat, hands down. And that is what I've been doing with my career. I actually was recently named Top Woman of the Law by Lawyers Weekly, and I won a national award for my pro bono service. I gave almost 400 hours to represent a gentleman from Uganda who was gay and had been tortured and would have gone back to torture and likely death if we had not won his case. And that case took me, and when I got into the case, I really didn't expect to spend 400 hours because there were a lot of special circumstances. But that is a testament to my character, despite other things I had going on, despite having to turn down paid cases. I made a commitment and I stuck to it, and that is what I've done for 15 years, building my own business from nothing, with no connections, all on my own grit. And, of course, with my husband, it deserves many thanks. But I did that on my own. At the age of 26 is when I started my law firm. And so what do I bring to the table to represent the people of the Commonwealth? It is that passion and that skill and being part of the private sector, but also knowing the public sector, having fought the federal government, but also being privileged to serve as liaison, being trusted entity with parts of the government that has me sit in the room with them in trying to find out how to make it work better by the federal government for the private sector. And what do I do with my practice, in my practice? As I mentioned, I represent asylum seekers. I also represent, a large part of my clientele is small businesses. So I actually help them create jobs for immigrants and U.S. citizens in all sectors. I have the most diverse experience and background because I have worked with social workers, preschool teachers, chefs, union workers, nurses, and to CEOs and biotech, runs across the board. I have worked with those companies trust me, I create the jobs for them. When they have a problem, they come to me. And those jobs are not just minimum wage jobs, those are very good paying jobs. Now, speaking of jobs, I have been saying this jobs plan since March, so I have no earthly idea why Congress or the President cannot come up with something that will put people back to work in America. And that idea that I have been talking about for the last 5 months, I got into this race, I was the second declared candidate, and I jumped in March, is that if we spent $100 billion on green jobs, in 2 years, we would create 2 million green jobs. And again, those aren't minimum wage jobs, those are skilled worker positions in the craft sectors, good union jobs, and I am a strong union supporter. My grandfather worked 40 years for General Electric as a union man, and I will put up my union bona fides against anybody. And if we put those $100 billion into the private sector, into the government investment, what will happen? Private sector will get interested. Because everybody says cut taxes, don't spend, cut taxes, don't spend. I'm going to say on the record, we are not broke. The United States is still the wealthiest country in the world. The problem is that we spend our money on wars and jails and everything else but education, jobs, and giving people their rights. And those green jobs, private sector will look at, the government is the only player on the block big enough to move jobs and invest in programs and create jobs, because Businesses are sitting on $2 trillion worth of cash, and they are not doing anything. Taxes are as low as they've ever been. We have one of the lowest tax rates in the world. They're not moving. The government, we must as Democrats be strong and say we are going to make this investment, and it is going to pay multiple dividends in the end. And what's going to happen? The private sector is going to see that the government is creating things, making it, inventing things in biotech and nanotechnology and rail and high-speed rail and all those things. The private sector is going to say, hey, government's creating jobs, government's making money, we want a part of that action. And that's how you get the private sector off their duff and creating jobs in tandem with the government. So in closing, again, for 15 years of my career, a committed, steady, long-term career, I have fought for the little guy against the biggest player on the block, which is the federal government. So I know how the federal government works and when it doesn't work, and how to fight that fight to help the people, again, get fair jobs, good pay, and equal rights across the country with my work in women's rights and LGBT activism and representing people with disabilities from across the board. That is my experience, and that is the passion that I would bring to the U.S. Senate, because as far as backbone goes, mine is made of a combination of steel, iron, and any other hard substance, titanium, that you can think of. Thank you very much, and I would love to have your support.